Some GamerGate supporters believe that pressuring advertisers to pull out would be a good way to convince gaming publications to initiate ethical reforms. What did you think of the strategy?
Well, it worked perfectly great. I think it actually was a good strategy. Like, do you want to be associated with this brand such as Gawker? That was the big question, and then ended up destroying Gawker. Well, Hulk Hogan did the other half.
Do you think that by contacting advertisers and hurting these companies' bottom line, you made it less likely that they'd be willing to come to the table to negotiate?
They weren't negotiating before. Like, they thought they were invincible, and we proved that they could bleed.
Do you support well, do you? This is 10 years ago. Did you support contacting advertisers over ethical breaches only or also in cases where they have opinions you don't like?
I don't think you remember this one, but the big one that actually won a lot of people was Bring Back Bullying from Sam Biddle. You remember that?
Yes, one of the Gawker writers advocated for bullying to come back.
Right. That actually is an opinion that I do not share, and therefore, I think that actually asking advertisers, "Do you actually agree with this opinion, and do you support handling the business?" was actually worth asking. And I think that actually did the most damage versus like unethical journalism. It actually, do you support bullying? And they said, no, we don't support bullying. Well, why in the world are you giving money to Gawker? That actually was a really good question.
Is it
So yeah,
anti Go ahead.
right. So like that's the question of like corporate policy and asking them like, hey, do you support X, Y, Z? I mean, it isn't nice, but at the same time, it's actually it's accurate.
Is it anti-free speech to cost a company money because they support bullying? Isn't that a position one can hold?
Uh, Wait, say the question one more time.
Isn't supporting bullying an opinion and therefore
Yes, it is.
censoring it anti-free speech?
I mean, you are not taking away money in the sense that someone, okay, you're not taking away their free speech. They're free to say anything they want, just as the company is free to support whatever people say by their money. You're not taking away money. You're actually pointing out that people may not want to support someone who's spouting a specific opinion. The money isn't owed to Gawker. It's not like we're taking it away. It's more of like, uh, how would you put it? Do you wish to be associated with this individual?
Don't you think this sets a dangerous precedent where, oh, well, you can say whatever you want, you just can't make any money off of it, and then now you have YouTube demonetizing people, or you've got people contacting advertisers of publications over opinion pieces, things like this.
Yeah, I mean, you can make whatever and say whatever you want to make. It's just the question of whether or not people are willing to support it. That's not. I don't think that's actually a free speech issue. And like, heck, like if someone wanted to make a game where you're playing the Nazis in Wolfenstein as opposed to you killing Nazis the other way around, sure, you can make that game. It doesn't mean people are going to give you money, and it doesn't mean you're going to get a platform to sell it on. But you can make that game.
The bullying example, while real, is sort of an extreme case, an opinion so extreme that perhaps you could justify a campaign on this about a campaign to get their advertisers pulled for it. Perhaps.
Right, which is
But
where Sam really stepped in it.
but would you also support contacting advertisers if they made a feminist opinion that you didn't like?
Well, I don't think that's going to work because a lot of corporations are pro-feminist, so it really wouldn't matter.
But would you support that as a moral principle? Or would you
I
say
mean,
that that's free speech?
you could. I mean, you could try. Like, for instance, like I don't know if people realize this, but like, for instance, like I'm Catholic, right? You have a Catholic organization who gives money to certain corporations and nonprofits. You can go up to them and say, "Hey, why are you giving? Like, you're Catholic. Why are you giving money to a pro-abortion group?" Uh, that's a legitimate question because it goes against your own ideology. Why are you giving money to this group? So I mean, like you can do that based on either side of the other side of the aisle,
Do you
and it does happen. I mean, like in fact, like it should actually happen because if you want your money for whatever corporation to go whatever causes that they think that you think are either beneficial, but they should be beneficial to them. Say for instance, there's a feminist organization giving money to a conservative Christian, conservative Christian charity. Like, yeah, you'd ask, hey, why are you giving the money to a anti-LGBT conservative Christian? You're a feminist organization. You really shouldn't do that. That's a legitimate question.
But when you're talking about opinions, whether that's bring back bullying at the extreme end or more moderate opinions, do you think it creates a chilling effect where publications will be less likely to publish views, publish opinion pieces that might be controversial or might be right wing or left wing or whatever because they're afraid that advertisers will pull out because of these campaigns to get their advertisers to be removed?
Okay. Now here's okay. I'm gonna take your question and ask another question. Should journalism be a for-profit business run by a corporation with corporate money interests?
Yes, I think that there probably is a role for the private sector in journalism.
But do you think that because they take money, that their journalism is going to be biased? I mean, supposedly there's a wall between the people taking in money and the people doing the articles, but there's also a benefit to actually promoting certain advertisers because of it. Like, for instance, is it ever disclosed that whenever you're watching something from NBC, that NBC is actually owned by GE? And GE, and if any product or anything that goes by NBC has a GE product in it, there's going to be a bias in whatever GE does. That's something that people don't really think about. But yes, that NBC is the media arm of GE, and there is a kind of corporate. Even though people try to separate the two, there is always a conflict of interest that does exist that people aren't aware of. So there's a whole bunch of Fox and all these other places. They have a corporate interest in benefiting their own products and in certain corporations that they're invested in. So I mean, there is room for nonprofit, donation based. What do you call it? I even think it's better to go by donation based nonprofit press as opposed to corporate media press that has a profit motive. In fact, the profit motive for a lot of places has gotten us in a lot of trouble because, like, for instance, a lot of salacious headlines or the clickbaity headlines, top 10 reasons for XYZ, all those things come from the fact that a lot of these websites want to get eyeballs and get advertising revenue, and so the quality of the reporting goes down. Whereas people who do the subscriber model, where you actually used to buy newspapers and actually had to subscribe to them, they're more reliant on the fact of accurate news reporting as opposed to it's an advertiser eyeball based. So there's that's a big difference in terms of our model nowadays. And because our model is based on the fact that, hey, we have advertisers who are promoting eyeballs, they tend to promote more salacious headlines as opposed to real news and or anything that could be beneficial to the public. The things that make the most money are articles that make people mad. And that's part of the reason why overall there's a financial benefit in making people pissed off. And people are. And there's a financial benefit in dividing people in half and making them fight each other and sharing articles because of that. So I think that's a big problem we have right now. I don't think you've considered it from that angle. So if you're going back to your original question, if your question is should we support the fact that we should stop advertisers and putting money in these places? Yes, because we need less of that kind of business.